In 1961, the IMF came to New Zealand and they came to Australia and we borrowed money. Now, notice this please, loans. Now the moment we borrowed the money, we wrecked the economy of the country. That's when we started to get unemployment. Everything got out of balance. Your man Menzies borrowed the money also. And what we didn't realise was they signed conditions. They don't use the word conditions, that's too small. They have to use another word, conditionalities, policies, you see. The longer the words, the more difficult it is to understand. Why don't they just say conditions? Oh, I can't use that, it's too simple. Conditionalities, policies, see. So the average Aussie or Kiwi looks at that, what the dickens does that mean? No one knows. So what happens is we get the money and we keep paying interest on this. And the farmers are having a ball. They're buying 2 tractors instead of 1. They're buying extra farms over here and over here. Everything's going well. And then in the year 1987, 26 years later, they come back again and the Prime Minister Holyoake is dead, Menzies is dead, we've got new Prime Ministers and they say you will now fulfil the conditions. 26 years later. And I'm going to call out these words. If you recognise them, please call out, say something, would you? So I know you're still awake. The first word we saw coming up in the paper, it's a new word, restructuring. And all our folks said, what on earth does that mean? And all our clever friends said it means they're going to change things around and make things more efficient. And when you go overseas, they don't use exactly the same word. You go to South Africa, they call it structural readjustment. But what it really means is they sack thousands of government workers. Why? Because they're going to sell the assets and there's no longer will be any work for those people, so you sack them. And you give them money in a brown paper envelope, they walk down the road, their job is gone forever. They might pay a redundancy fee of $30,000 even to get rid of the guy because he's never coming back and that job will never be replicated again. So off he goes. Used to be called getting the sack, now it's called being made redundant. When you go to South Africa, a guy walking down the road with his brown paper envelope, what's happened to you? He says, I've just been structurally readjusted. You go through the border into Zimbabwe, over there they call it ESAP, Economic Structural Adjustment Program. You go through the border into Zambia up to the north, they call it SAP, Structural Adjustment Program. Every country is slightly different and they all have little catchwords they use. Do you remember the catchwords they used here? There is some belt tightening to be done. Here's another one. There is some pain to be endured. They talked about a level playing field and light at the end of the tunnel. The only light at the end of the tunnel is the coming of Jesus. You believe me? So with all these funny little catchwords, the next word we saw in the paper a few days later was corporatisation. The word is so big, it's not even in the dictionary. It's so new too. So we said to all our clever university friends, what does that mean? They said, well, because governments are not very good at organising things, they're not efficient, we're going to turn government departments into corporations and they'll run things better. And all the Kiwis said, oh, good. We woke up a few mornings later, the new word is privatisation. We said, what does that mean? Never seen it before. This is 1987. It's a new word, you see. Never seen it. And they said, oh, it's going to make things more efficient because these corporations are going to be taken out of government hands and put into private hands. They're better at business. And all the Kiwis said, oh, good. A few mornings later, we wake up, the new word in the paper is shares. We smell a rat. Sniff, sniff. We say, you're not selling these shares overseas, are you? Oh, no, says the government. We're only selling 49% overseas and we're keeping 51% in the country. And all the Kiwis said, oh, good. Because you see, look, 49% overseas and then 51% in the country. Now, we went to preach in a place called Sri Lanka. You've heard of that? Which used to be called Ceylon. And while I was speaking there to this massive meeting, we had big meetings there in Colombo, I said, what is your catchword here? And I laughed when they said it. It's so funny. You wouldn't guess their catchword. Their catchword is peopleisation. You're allowed to laugh, folks, if you want to, you know. Peopleisation, I said. That's a goodie. And I said, what does that mean, for goodness sake? They said that when they sell the government departments, they sell 49% overseas, they keep 51% in the country. Those are called the peopleisation shares. What happens next? One of these guys gets on the telephone, he calls someone in New York in a position of power and says, let's have a little stock market collapse, shall we? So they rocked the stock market for 24 hours. Do you remember it went down some time ago? And when it went down, one of these groups gets a fright. Who gets a fright? The overseas well-known investors or the little peopleisation people? These little people get a fright. They sell their shares to these guys, and at that point, what used to be yours is gone forever. Paid for by your father's tax money, your grandfather's tax money, your tax money. You've lost the asset forever. It's called state-owned enterprises, SOEs, or the family silver goes overseas. So when you see the word privatisation in future, add another word to it, and the word is goodbye. And another word, forever. You will never see it again. It's gone.
To have debt well below many of the countries we compare ourselves to with, using the IMF measure, of 24.1%.
There's a deep connection between money as an instrument of change and what you're doing now at Social Capital.
Look, here's the thing. There's about 150 people that run the world. Anybody who wants to go into politics, they're all puppets, okay? There are 150, and they're all men, that run the world, period, full stop. They control most of the important assets. They control the money flows. And these are not the tech entrepreneurs. Now, they are going to get rolled over the next 5 to 10 years by the people that are really underneath pulling the strings. And when you get behind the curtain and see how that world works, what you realize is it is unfairly set up for them and their progeny.
Reno TV.